Hello there. How are you doing? Welcome to the Meath on Track public meeting online. That's currently being broadcast onto the Meath on Track page. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the meeting today, and just to say that it would be great if we could sit in the same room and have this discussion, but we can't. So we have to make use of the technology that we have. That's why we are doing it via Facebook. But if people have particular questions, don't hesitate to try and send those questions to me. I'll do my best to answer those questions. The reason why we decided to have this meeting tonight is because of the great issue, which is the rail line to County Meath. Meath is one of the few counties in the country that's really poorly served by a lack of a rail line. There's been a campaign going on for years. The Meath on Track campaign has been literally fighting for a rail line easily for the past 20 years now at this stage. So the idea here would be to see, can we build up a cross-community, cross-party group of people who will work together to see, can we push for a rail line. So that means no matter what political background people are from, or if they're from no political background, the idea is to try and get people to work together to achieve this rail line. Now, I do understand that many people will be cynical. They will have bought houses maybe in different parts of the county, and they would have been told in the prospectus 10 years ago when they bought this house that a rail line was coming. And indeed, there have been many false prophets and many, I suppose, politicians who have promised the rail line. Our objective really is just to put as much pressure, to build as much pressure and momentum behind the campaign to get a rail line as possible. And so far, we have had difficulties with different governments. This new government, in fairness, has promised to carry out an assessment. Now, you can look at that promise as a glass half full or glass half empty. An assessment could be a process of kicking a decision down the tracks, excuse the pun, or it could be a real desire to make a decision to look at this particular issue. I'm hopeful that it's a real desire to make a decision to push this particular issue. Whichever way it is, we have a job in our campaign is to keep momentum and pressure up. So what I'm going to do here is run through a very, very quick presentation that I've made for you. We're not used to this particular piece of software that's running, so there might be a little bit of difficulty at the start. So bear with me if we can, but we're just going to run this here now. And I'm going to kick it off. And this presentation basically looks at a number of things. It looks at the history of the rail line, the history of the campaign. It looks at the need for the campaign, and it looks what are the next steps to the campaign. Bear with me. So obviously, the people who come to me will be struck by the fact that they see rail lines, crisscrossing parts of the county. Indeed, there is a rail line going up the east coast of the county, the Dublin to Belfast corridor. There's a rail line that clips the southern end of the county, the Dublin to Galway rail line. And indeed, there's actually a freight line that functions throughout the county. And at one stage, Meath was festooned with different rail lines. So the Dublin and Drogheda rail line obviously was constructed first, and then on to Belfast. And then the Navan to Oldcastle rail line was opened in the 1850s. In 1862, the Dublin and Meath rail line was constructed and operated, obviously, at Ransom Navan. And I gasped in amazement, because back then the whole project was done in 3 years with picks and shovels, while today it takes a mountain of money and a mountain of time even to get a feasibility study. So it was a gold standard rail line. It was considered the Rolls Royce of rail lines, and people were able to run at 20 miles per hour on that. Now, it's one of the reasons that it was built so well is that we still have a very good alignment here in County Meath at the moment. There's a quick map just to show you that, the map on the left-hand side is, I think, 1910, and the map on the right-hand side is now. So much of the rail corridors have been deleted. And even if you zoom in to the picture on the right-hand side, there's another section, that's the King's Court to Navan line, which is no longer in existence, that is in that picture. So the rail station in Navan was on the Oldcastle line originally, a small rail station with 4 platforms. In the 50s and 60s, the governments at the time figured that rail line didn't have a future, and they told Córas An Bréaran at the time to close large sections of the rail line. So a shockingly short-sighted view of that particular government. And the rail line was closed from the King's Court end to passengers in 47, and from Oldcastle they continued up until 1958, and then the Clonsilla to Navan line was lifted in 1963. I think there was a football match, an All-Ireland, in which Meath was involved in at the start of that decade, in which the line was used for one of the last times, but it was withdrawn in 63. Now, right now, the only operational line into the centre of the county is that line that runs from Towermines to Drogheda. Sometimes people get confused and they figure that there's a line already there. That line is only a freight line, and it operates from Towermines in the transportation of ore. It actually it removes the equivalent of 40 HGVs, big trucks, off the road for each train that runs every day. So it has a really positive impact on the road network, both for traffic and for maintenance, keeping those HGVs off the road and the freight on the line. A lot of people have asked me, Peter, why can't we get at least a passenger rail line operating on that to Drogheda? And I agree. I do believe it should be opened, and I have made, on behalf of the campaign, an effort to try and get the rail line opened to Drogheda, because that would link into Dublin, and not just Dublin city centre, but it would link into, obviously, Swords, maybe even the airport could be accessed from it, and right into Dublin city centre from the north side, opening up a whole chunk of Dublin to rail line passengers from County Meath. It would also obviously open up Drogheda in itself, but it would open up Dundalk and Belfast too to passengers from Meath, and it would be a good idea to do that. Again, the government's response to it has been, as a commuter line to Dublin, it probably would take about an hour and 20 minutes, and also the infrastructure, it would not necessarily be enough to handle that capacity there. Iarnród Éireann have quoted the figure of €100 million to bring the Navan Drogheda line up to passenger standards. I think this is a cost worth paying. Now, just to give you a context of population here, when Meath did have a rail line, there was 60,000 people living in it, and now there's nearly 250,000 people. So you can see from that slide, the population, when I was a kid, at 100,000 people here, in 2016, the population hit 200,000, and Meath is one of the fastest growing counties, probably second or third now in speed of growth. 250,000 people will be living in Meath soon. And that's good news for the whole world, that there's so many of us in Meath, for sure. But it just means that we have to have proper investment in infrastructure to get to people, around the place, to get them to work. Now, it's important to say that the NTA's projections on population and the NTA is the organisation, the National Transport Agency, it has differed significantly from Meath County Council, and indeed sometimes the census itself. So we believe as a campaign that the NTA are not using the right population projections when it looks to work out the feasibility of the particular rail line. The history of County Meath is, as you probably know, you have Louth, Meath, Kildare and Wicklow, 4 counties that are very similar to each other in population and in distance from Dublin. But Meath has been separate from those counties, and that Meath has been, by default, assigned to the position of a commuter county. So in other words, Meath has been assigned a position of great population and housing over the last 20 years, but it hasn't got the same level of jobs that those other 4 counties, which are comparable counties, at all. So as a result, more Meath people leave to go to work every day, leave the county to go to work every day, and that's the only county in the 32 counties of Ireland in which that happens. No other county sees the majority of its workers leave the county to go to work. So we are definitely treated different. Now, it may be the case, because of COVID, that less people are commuting and there's probably less strain on the buses and on the roads at the moment. But, hopefully over the next number of months, we're going to see the country getting back together. So this is a project for the medium long term as well, and we need to make sure that we're focused on that. Meath workers commute further distances than any other county. Navan is the largest town in the state without a rail line. So we have enormous regional imbalances. Economic activity has been really focused on Dublin over the last number of decades. Nothing against Dublin. It's not good for Dublin, to be honest, because Dublin is overheating in terms of housing, in terms of transport and schools and all those things. But right now, we have about 50% of the taxes of the state paid in Dublin. They reckon the population of Dublin would be 50% of the state. Now, that's way out of kilter in European terms. London is considered to be too dominant in British terms with regards to its development, and it's only about 14% of the population of Britain. And here we are, Dublin pushing towards 50% of the population of this state. So this will mean an increasing likelihood that we'll have to commute if you want to work in this country. What effect does it has on people? You know, typically from Navan now, a daily commute both directions is about 3 hours. Maybe not right now with the pandemic, but when traffic gets back to normal, from places like Oldcastle-upon-Boy and Trim, that can be 4 hours a day. And if you add that all up, that's the equivalent to about 120 days work a year unpaid. An incredible issue. And for mothers and fathers, that's 120 days worth of time that they don't have with their children. And that has an enormous effect on family life. There is a significant cost there. For a person living in Kells, you know, if you work out the tolls, they'll pay nearly 2.5 grand on tolls on an annual year. That adds to the cost of running a 3-year-old car, which is reckon is now about €4,500. So you're talking about 7 grand to commute by car, to sit in traffic for 720 hours from places like Navan to Dublin. So we have a spatial disaster happening. You know, overheated capital, a third of the country, a commuter belt where people are living in commuter hell. Parents tell me that they only see their kids now on the weekend. And in other places, where you go to Clonmel and Delvin and parts of Westmeath, where people are actually saying that one of the parents is actually staying in Dublin for 3 or 4 nights a week at this stage, because the commute is killing them so much. And parents are obviously not getting to see their kids, which can lead to anxiety and stresses on their children. There's obviously a cost to the state. Ireland is way behind in its climate change commitments. They reckon that Ireland could face, fines of up to €5.5 billion by 2030 if it doesn't, reduce its greenhouse gas emissions in line with EU targets, and this could lead to a significant jump in global temperatures. So the point of the matter is, by not investing in renewable and efficient public transport, we're actually costing ourselves a lot in the short term. And I also want to say this as well. Public transport is a public good. It doesn't discriminate between anybody. It gets people to where they need to be, no matter what kind of income they have. And the more public transport we use, the more cars we take off the road, which benefits everybody else as well. And we do have a bus network here, but let me tell you, if you're a public representative, people will let you know the buses are breaking down regularly. They are regularly late. They're regularly overcrowded. Some buses don't accept passengers who are wheelchair users. And while they can use bus lanes, we still don't have continuous bus lanes into the city. It's interesting to note that Navan is the biggest town in the country without a rail line, but the Navan to Dublin rail or bus service is the most expensive route, 26 cents per kilometre, which compares to Drogheda, which is 16 cents per kilometre. And the Navan to Dublin route is, I believe, is one of the most profitable routes in the country. So there's just a wee picture of a number of our campaigners back in, I think that picture was taken in 2013. And basically was that the government had promised that the project would start in 2015, and we all know that that didn't happen. So what's happening at the moment? We have a Transport 21 plan, which was announced by the government way back in 2005. The line to Navan was to be built into 2 phases. The first phase to Clonsilla, 7.5k, which was actually built, served Hansfield, Dunboyne, and the Park and Ride at Pace. That became operational 10 years ago, last September. And the rail line's been continuously promised. Indeed, Noel Dempsey promised that it would be complete and would be on it at 2015. It didn't happen. What's left is 34 kilometres of rail line that has to be built. It would serve directly Dunshaughlin, Kilmessan, Navan Town Centre and Navan North. But in doing that, it would actually allow for people to use it from obviously Kells, Athboy, Cavan, and further afield. It would easily allow for them to drive at, at a good pace in roads that are not full, but to skip the traffic completely by gaining access to the rail line. So there's a small picture, I don't know if you can see it, which basically shows where the planned station was to be located in Navan. Now, this line here, if you can see my cursor, is the Navan to Trim Road, and this is basically Chadwicks based here, and this is the Woodlands entrance here. So going up this carriage road, as it's known, up towards Parnell Park, that triangle there was to be the rail line and was to allow access there. There's also shopping centres planned at that level too as well. Other reasons why, obviously, that's we need the rail line is because, first of all, Meath suffers from a serious lack of investment, as we discussed earlier, and that's partially because we didn't have the infrastructural investment. So Louth, Wicklow and Kildare had motorways way before Meath had. Believe it or not, and people don't see this, but we don't have the electricity requirements and also water requirements that other counties have, which make it very difficult for foreign direct investment to locate in Meath. Other challenges that remain is that we have a toll booth in the M3. Everybody knows just before the park and ride, it wasn't by accident that was placed there. They didn't want people dodging the toll booth, getting on the rail line first, so they placed it there. The government, foolishly, the Fianna Fáil government at the time, signed up to a public-private partnership deal, which basically said that if the toll booth wasn't paying for itself, that the government would pay it first. And indeed, during the crash, there was probably about 5 or 6 years where traffic was very low on the road, and millions of euros of fines have been paid by the state to these companies as a result of that. One of the things that this campaign is seeking to do is to put up a shuttle bus from the main towns in Meath directly to the rail station. So you can park your car in Navan or Athboy or Kells, get a shuttle bus to the rail line, get on the rail line, and then miss the traffic that builds up. According to the NTA, the cost of the rail line in Navan will be in the region of 350 million euros to 400 million euros. They said in their initial investigations that the benefit would not exceed the costs. As I said earlier, they were making decisions on disputed population projections. If they continue down that line, this rail line won't be built until about 2045. And that is going to cost a generation of Meath people big time. And understand this as well, that capital investment in this state for the last 10 years has only been beaten in terms of how low it is by Romania, the second last country in terms of investment that we have in the whole of the EU. So our capital stock, our infrastructural stock, our transportation stock is stuffed as a result. And you can see the NTA's subvention fell between 30% between 2008 and 2014. So we have a massive problem with investments in infrastructure. The problem is, politically speaking, is that people, I believe, don't take enough interest in infrastructural investment spend when elections happen. It's very seldom talked about. There's very little emphasis put onto it, and as a result, it doesn't materialize when we need it, unfortunately. If the Navan rail line was built, it would intersect with the Sandyford Lewis terminus at the Cabra station. So that would be phenomenal. It would mean that you could get up, let's say, if you wanted to go to Dublin, but you needed to go to the south side of Sandyford, you'd get off at Cabra station, get on the Lewis terminal, go through College Green, Dawson Street, St Stephen's Green, Ranelagh, Dundrum Shopping Centre, and get to Sandyford. And it's a lot of the multinationals that are based there. It also would terminate at the docks at the IFSC, which we see is growing and growing, and more companies being located there. It would actually take 52 minutes, believe it or not, to travel from Navan all the way to the IFSC if that rail line is working. The Lewis currently takes 52 minutes to travel from Tallaght to O'Connell Street. So it would be like moving in time-wise, Navan to about 20 miles closer to Dublin if this rail line is built. As I said earlier, much of the original infrastructure remains, so the alignment itself is there. And the alignment is actually there for Trim too. And the station used to be in the field opposite the Lidl on the Athboy Road. The Kells alignment is more or less intact as well, as is the Old Castle alignments. So these are basically the mounds that are linear and that were built way back then, as I said, in a Rolls-Royce fashion. They're in good nick, and they're running through most of those locations as well. So what's new? What's new is that there is a new assessment study planned. And for those just joining the meeting, as I said earlier, we could look at this as glass half full or glass half empty. We can be cynical and say this is just another mechanism by a government to kick the ball down the road, to say they're doing something, to give the impression that something is happening. Nothing's going to happen. Or you can look at it positively and say, well, actually, this is an opportunity for us, the people of Meath, to effect change on this, to actually really get a crowbar underneath the government and force them down this route. So the government have said that this new assessment study, which was just announced a couple of weeks ago, is to validate that a route identified in the draft environmental impact statements in 2011 is the right route. They're also been asked to look at Route B, and I'll show you those in a slide coming up. And so basically, to validate is that's the best route or is Route B the best route? And then to develop a cost estimate of the project to include all the different costs, direct and indirect, and to put a contingency and inflation cost in there as well. If this goes ahead, and that's probably one of the biggest ifs you'll probably hear this side of Christmas, commencement date could happen by 2026. Again, I don't get people's hopes up too much on this, but all I'm saying is that the political will is there. It is possible that we could have shovels and trucks and diggers breaking ground in 5 years in County Meath. And I believe that's what we have to work for, to be honest. So to establish, obviously, the assessment has to establish projections of population, employment growth in the catchment area, and it's been tasked to work with Meath County Council, Fingal County Council, and the NTA in that sense there as well. To undertake a comprehensive assessment of the benefits, the economic outcomes, the environmental outcomes, and the societal outcomes, and as prepare and outline business case for the project, its impact on national, regional, local policies, and establishing its benefits with regards to the economic costs and the financial benefits of the project. So that's what's been asked to do. So what's the actual process? A tender for the assessment has been put out, which is good news. The contract of works is to be allocated in December 2020. That's this month. We haven't heard news on whether or not the contract has been allocated. In 2 weeks of its appointment, the consultants should prepare a detailed program of the undertakings that are necessary. So the consultants will show what jobs have to be done to carry out this assessment study, all the works that's involved in it. And then they have to report at a draft and a stage to Meath County Council, Fingal County Council, and the NTA. Before it's finalised, they go to a public consultation. And that's where the people of Meath come in. A public consultation is to take place on the final report in mid-2021 to allow the general public to give feedback to the feasibility study with regards to that process. And that's really important. And I think that I have a couple of slides here, just about 2 or 3 left, and those slides indicate what I'm asking people to do. And keep in mind, that process that's involved with us. The slide that you see in front of yourself at the moment is a slide with 2 outlines, if you like. There is a red line, which shows the existing rail line to Pace. There is then a turquoise line and a dark pink line. The turquoise line goes north of Dunshaughlin. The dark pink line goes south of Dunshaughlin. Now, there's a little bit of an issue around the alignment here. The original alignment is the purple alignment. It's known as Route A. It goes south of Dunshaughlin, and it would have a station in Drumree. It's not ideal. First of all, the station is outside of Dunshaughlin. And secondly, there's a big population centre in Ashbourne, which is to the east of Dunshaughlin. So as a result, this rail line will find it hard to make it easy for passengers from Ashbourne to plug in. Ideally, you want to pick up as many people as possible on the way into Dublin. So the line B, the turquoise line, is a line that goes closer to Ashbourne and may make it easier for people to access it from there. And it is being costed as well. Now, the problem with the alignment B is that it will probably cost more, because there's about 6, 7, 8 miles of the original alignment that wouldn't be used, and therefore they'd have to build that alignment for themselves. So there's a quid pro quo. People often ask me, Peadar, should we not be pushing for one alignment over another alignment? As a campaign, we can, if that's what people want. But my instinct in this is, let's look for the rail line. If it can be feasible to build a rail line in alignment A, let's do it. If it's feasible to do it in alignment B, let's do that. But I wouldn't, as a campaign, start to rule out particular alignments on the basis of beggars can't be choosers. We need the damn rail line, is the truth of the matter. So our next steps is, what I want to do is just to ask people from all political backgrounds and none to start creating as much political pressure as possible. And one of the ways we can do that, I believe, is either by exposing injustice, so people telling their own stories of what it's like to commute from their homes into Dublin by car or by bus at the moment. I would ask people to send a private message to me on this Facebook page in which they would indicate that they want to do a short YouTube or Facebook video, or whether they want to do an article for local newspapers. We need to seriously start raising the bar of attention on this issue throughout the county and throughout the country. And that means exposing the injustice of not having proper public transport for our people. So tonight, think about your own situation, think about your families and friends' situation. Ask them, will they do a video? Will they go to journalists? Will they get involved in this process to raise the issue? The second issue is that I believe we need people on the streets. Now, we had a meeting back last February, just before the pandemic hit, in which we were putting in place a plan to put feet on the streets. Obviously, the pandemic put paid to that. We couldn't do it. But I do believe that hopefully the issue of COVID will start to subside come February, March, April into next year, which will give us an opportunity to, please God, get on the streets and make noise. There's two issues that really catches the attention of the political establishment: the exposure of injustice in the media, or feet on the street in towns and villages. That puts pressure like nothing else onto the establishment parties to do things. I'm the chair, as you know, of the Save Navan Hospital campaign as well, and my instinct on this is that we need to replicate the Save Navan Hospital campaign. We need to build a committee of people from different backgrounds or different experiences, who will come and have meetings to organize, build, fundraise, develop social media, develop leaflets, take signatures at shopping centres, go door to door and raise awareness, and to run a really popular campaign. So again, no matter what political background or what organization or none you are from, please send me a private message on this Facebook page to say that you're interested in getting involved in it. I do believe we need to take thousands of people onto the streets of Navan. I only mention Navan because it's the biggest town and it's the most central in the county. We need to organise these issues. They take time to do it. They need a committee to do it. We need to make sure that we have clubs, schools, community, civic groups and societies plugging in. And we need to put enormous pressure on the council, on TDs and on MEPs to make this happen. We need to really engage with the public consultation process that's happening later on. I do believe that if councils or TDs are looking at this, we should be looking for that public consultation process to kick in earlier in this process than where it's currently located. We need to make sure that the public consultation happens at the earliest part of this issue. So that's the particular discussion I have from you there. I'll just take that screen out. I see that a number of good few people have joined us. This is a new Facebook page in that it doesn't have a massive number of followers. What I would do is ask people to like this page, to share the page, to share this video when we finish it as broadly as possible, to build up this social media capacity as best we can over the next while. Just to try and get to a number of questions there. Robert says, why don't other TDs care more about this? Listen, other TDs do care about this, I'll be honest, but I'll also be honest, some other TDs don't. And that's the truth of it. I suppose what we need to do is just really make this such a critical issue. I would ask people to pick up the phone, ring their TD tonight, tomorrow, or some stage this week before we get into the following week. I would ask people to tweet this video, to Facebook it, to Instagram it, to text their TDs, to email their TDs, to send private messages on their TDs' Facebook pages. Keep the pressure up on this. Now, just there's a couple of other people coming on there, and just to thank individuals for coming in. People are often asking the question, is this really going to happen? I tell you, way back in 2010, we were told that Navan Hospital was going to close. And we were told there's nothing that was going to be done about it. So a group of us from different political backgrounds gathered together and said we'd hold a march. The first march, about 200 people showed up. And a lot of people felt bad about it. A lot of people went, God, if there's only 200 people showing up, it's going to send the wrong message with regards to how important this is. My instinct was that from little acorns, mighty oaks grow. And the next time we had a march, there was about 350 people there. Then we had a march, there was 500 people. And then we got together in the rooms in the Newgrange, built up the organization even stronger. Finally, we took 10,000 people onto the streets of Meath. We did it again in the subsequent march. We did it again in the subsequent march. And that had the effect of putting so much political pressure that today Navan Hospital exists. And let me tell you this, if Navan Hospital didn't exist, you would have had a major COVID problem here in Meath. Those ICU beds would not be there. Those hospital beds, step-down beds would not be there. And we would have had a situation where Navan capacity would not have been in place with regards to this COVID crisis. Because of the Save Navan Hospital campaign, we have a hospital that functions and a hospital that was there when we needed it in this particular pandemic. Is it enough? No, we need further investment in that hospital, and we're going to keep working for that. But that needs to be the instinct in this. We're not going to give up with regards Meath on track. We are going to be a thorn in the side of every single government if they renege on their promises with regards to this project. We will get this built come hell or high water. Thanks very much for joining in with us tonight. As I said, PM, private message me if you can help out, and we talk to you soon. Ihoa, slán go fóill.